Yeah, from the edge of the ocean to the rise of the sun. This is more than a trip, this is how it's done. West Coast breeze in my wings as I glide. Golden sunsets, let the highways decide. Redwoods talking, mountains telling me truth. Every mile adds wisdom, every stop adds proof. From deserts that whisper to cities that scream, neon lights mixed with an American dream. I don't rush the journey, let the land educate. Every boarding falls feel like I'm leveling fate. I ain't lost, I'm learning. Every turn keeps earning more than views, more than fame. I'm chasing knowledge, not a name. I'm flying like an eagle, coast to coast, over rivers, fields, and stories untold. Searching for freedom, searching for light, from west to east, yeah. Day to night, I'm flying like an eagle through the land. Every state got truth in the sand. This is America, seen wide and free. Knowledge my fuel, sky under me. Flames roll wide like pages in a book. Small towns teaching lessons you overlook. Factories humming, campuses alive. History breathing just to show how we survive. Through heartland roads where the stars feel close. Every face got a story, every town got hope. I don't just visit, I listen instead. Cause wisdom ain't loud, it's what's quietly said. I ain't here for postcards, I'm here for the wise heart. How they live, how they grow, how the roots shape what they know. I'm flying like an eagle, coast to coast, over rivers, fields, and stories untold. Searching for freedom, searching for life, from west to east, yeah. Day to night, I'm flying like an eagle through the land. Every state got truth in the sand. This is America, seen wide and free. Knowledge my fuel, sky under me. Freedom ain't just space, it's understanding. Knowing the ground where you're landing. Past and present in the same frame. Different voices, one shared name. East Coast skyline, sunrise gold. Cowbirds, classrooms, stories bold. From cobblestone past to modern halls. You feel the weight when history calls. I came for the journey, stayed for the truth. Every stop sharpened my vision, my youth.
What's good, family? Welcome back to the channel. I'm E. Millions Williams, your tour guide for today's journey. Before we get moving, do me a quick favor if you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and lets us keep bringing you these deep dive travel reports. This week, we're traveling to Washington, D.C. But we're not here just to visit, we're here to understand why D.C. ticks. This city isn't just monuments and museums. It's power, policy, education, culture, and everyday life, all layered into one place. Throughout this series, we'll be breaking down a full travel report. What it's like to be here, move through the city, and experience it as a visitor. And just as important, we'll be covering a quality of life report, how people live, learn, work, and build futures in the nation's capital. So lock in, stay curious, and travel with purpose. Ikuzo.
Hey, what's going on? You're here with Emil, and right now what we're going to be going over is understanding history, topology, and geography of DC. The reason why I feel like it's important to go over this stuff is because we have to understand the indigenous people that came before making of DC. I guess you could say the earlier human experience before the geography, the colonization, the migration waves, also the economic foundation. We are going to go into economic foundation in the next video. And we're also going to be going over power, governance, and identity in another video, as well as the social structure, the daily life we've already went over, but we are going to recap on that with a more in-depth demographic exploration of DC that will be happening tomorrow. The conflicts in crisis and turning point. That's going to be something we're going to talk about also in the next video, as well as the cultural development. And we are going to be looking at the modern transformation, the continuity, and the changes taking place. And in this video, we are going to be talking about the wildlife industrialization decline and the environmental justice that is involved in DCC. If you don't know, St. Louis is going through some things, and I really am looking forward to trying to enlighten people about what's going on in St. Louis. But until then, let's go ahead and talk about DC, because we're not here for that. All right. So what we have here, this is a few articles that I would like to go over. The first article is from the National Park Service. So when we talk about Native peoples of Washington, D.C., Civil War defenses of Washington, George Washington Memorial Parkway, National Capital Parks, East, Rock Creek Park. Prior to the arrival of the Europeans, the area we think of today as metropolitan Washington, D.C. was rich in natural resources and supported local Native people living there. The Anacostia and Potomac rivers provided a variety of fish, including a dependable supply of migratory fish that converged seasonally at this head of tide water location. Additionally, the surrounding wilderness provided plenty of forest produce and wild game such as turkeys, quail, geese, ducks, deer, elk, bear, and bison. The native people also grew corn, squash, beans, and potatoes in small cleared areas on the fertile floodplains. They quarried stone in nearby stream valleys and used it for tools. Local American Indians also traded with native people from distant regions, exchanging resources and materials from a wide area. There is evidence that the strategic location of the confluence of the Anacostia and Potomac rivers, Tidewater, and Piedmont made the area a major crossroads and trading center for coastal and interior tribes. The village of Nacotchtank, from which the name Anacostia is derived, was the largest of the three American Indian villages located in the Washington area and is believed to have been a major trading center. The people of Nacotchtank, or Anacostans, were in Algonquin speaking people that lived along the southeast side of the Anacostia River in the area between today's Bolling Air Force Base and Anacostia Park. In the floodplain below the easternmost section of today's Fort Circle Parks, a second town named Rough Quina most likely stood on the Potomac's west bank, opposite of what today is Theodore Roosevelt Island. Another village existed on a narrow bluff between today's Chesapeake and Ohio Channel and MacArthur's Boulevard in the northwest section of the city. Captain John Smith was the first European documented to have reached the navigable head of the Potomac River during his exploration in 1608. Smith's exploration led to several subsequent contacts with American Indians, some friendly, some outright conflict, and ultimately resulted in European takeover and settlement of the land and the virtual displacement of the local American Indians. After only 40 years of contact with the Europeans, the population of local American Indians was only 1/4 of those that lived in the region prior to 1608. Many of the Nacotchtanks and other local American Indians died from diseases introduced by the Europeans and in wars. Others joined other tribes to the north, south, and west. Okay, so I feel like that was helpful. Okay, so now we're going to deep dive into the history of the Native American history. The Indians' capital city, Native Histories of Washington, D.C. This article was written March 27, 2015 by Jason Stenhauer. I know I said it wrong. Please forgive me. This is a nice picture of the meeting between the Europeans and the Native Americans, as you see. As a Klodge Fellow at the Library of Congress, historian Joseph Jinton Pelloway is researching his forthcoming book, The Indians' Capital City, Secret Native Histories of Washington, D.C. He sat down with Jason Stenhauer to discuss the facts, myths, and contradictions of Native presence in the nation's capital. The Chesapeake has a rich indigenous history that predates the creation of Washington, D.C. What societies were here before the birth of modern-day Washington? The human history of the region goes back thousands of years. Groups organized themselves into stratified political units known now as chiefdoms, developed military and political alliances, and practiced religious and spiritual ceremonies aimed at giving thanks and keeping the world in balance. They were all part of the massive Algonquin language that spanned the East Coast, up through the Great Lakes in Canada, and even stretched to the Great Plains in part of present-day California. Although the distant languages were related, they were not mutually intelligible. The primary native group that inhabited the area between the Potomac and Anacostia rivers was and continued to be the Castaway, along with several related groups, including the Anaxtake, the Pamunkey, the Mattapennit, the Nanjinik, and the Toxheat. You've asserted that Native peoples played a significant role in shaping Washington, D.C. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that? That's the question that the book asks. In my forthcoming book, I write about the perceived congruity of Native people in urban spaces that the Native past must give away to an urban future, and that they're mutual exclusive. This incongruity is root to Washington, D.C., especially due to the creation of the commemorative landscape centered in the art and architecture of federal buildings, but dispersed around the city as well. That iterated notions of pacification, of a conquest completed, and a vanishing Indians. The artwork in the rotunda of the Capitol building, for example, focuses on Native people assimilating, like Pocahontas, signing land treaties, William Penn in the Delaware, and being subjugated, Daniel Boone fighting Indians. My book argues that, unlike the native subjects of Capitol art and architecture, through indigenous visitors and inhabitants engaged with non-native individuals in the symbols of settler society in Washington. carved out their own space within it, and claimed or reclaimed an ownership of the place. Next question. The presence of natives in Washington in the first half of 19th century coincides with the removal of native tribes from their homelands in the South and West. How do you interpret these tensions between natives being welcomed to Washington while Washington elected officials evicted natives nationwide? Was the tension felt at the time? Author replies, that's certainly a big part of what attracted me to this project. Much of the earlier artwork in the city was created and installed in the 1830s, the 1840s, 1850s to justify the removal and reservation policies being simultaneously crafted by Congress and the presidents. Yet hundreds and thousands of Indians delegates were in the city concurrently. White Washingtonians told themselves one story on their walls and in their paintings, a story of a completed conquest and vanishing Indians, yet experienced an entirely different story in their everyday lives as they encountered actual native people all around over the cities. From the perspectives of the native visitors themselves, the tension was not much about the representation versus the reality, but about resisting the very representation themselves. The process started in earliest days of the city and continues to present. So this is Joseph right here, as you see. Next question. Speaking of the representations, you came to the library excited to examine little-known 19th century guidebooks to Washington, which document native people in places in the city. Can you tell us about what you've discovered? What did you find that you expected, and what surprised you? The guidebooks have been great sources. These were written for Washington tourists and provided not only descriptions of the city, but also short anecdotes about capital society. Stories of the native delegates or inhabitants are sprinkled throughout the books. One story, which was reprinted several times, was the Winnebago or Ho Chunk delegation of 1837 and their visit to the Capitol Rotunda. The story originated in William Force's picture of Washington in its vicinity. The Indians he wrote, whose faces were painted of various colors, carried their scalping knives and tomahawks and their long iron-looking bows and arrows, and examined the reliefs depicting scenes of colonization, but stopped in front of the relief showing Daniel Boone fighting and killing Indian men. They looked intently for some moments, scrutinizing and recognizing every part of the scene. And then, suddenly, as of one impulse, they raised their dreadful war cry and ran hurriedly from the hall. Force offered no explanation, and his reader was left to wonder if perhaps the Indians could not distinguish between sandstone and flesh and were scared for their own lives, or if they ran out to avenge the deaths of the depicted Indians. His message was clear, though. Native people were not at home in the city. Did this really happen? I've compared the story to newspaper accounts and personal reminiscences of the delegation, and I've seen nothing that indicates the natives were violent or dangerous. In my book, I'm unpacking these stories as a way to explore how and why our cultural expectations developed, as well as how and why those expectations are challenged, resisted, and reshaped constantly. You see, it says the Washington Sketchbook, a society souvenir. So, next question that was asked of the author, and what about the customs manuals you found, which also had surprising and sultry discoveries? These sources have proved to be one of the most surprising and exciting throughout the 19th century. White women wrote customs manuals and social life guides that chronicled events in elite circles of the capital. After the Civil War, the number of these etiquette books written by or intended for women increasingly exponentially suggested women's heightened importance in the capital as the 19th century rolled on. I thought these sources might provide good insights into capital society. I did not expect the women would be writing about Native men in the ways they did. Here's an example. Ada Sterling, in A Belle of the 50s, depicted a meeting between President Buchanan and the delegation of Native men she described as the copper-hued sons of the far west. During the meeting, she said a young redskin sprang from the floor where he had been squatting. He was lithe and graceful as Longfellow's dream of Hewith. The muscles of his upper body, bare of all drapery, glistened like burnished metal. His gesticulation were fierce and imperative. His voice strangely thrilling. Despite the fact that white women's sexuality was closely monitored, it seems elite women of Washington very openly expressed desire, gazed in curiosity, and even gave voice to eroticized fantasies in their writings and fantasies. Native men's bodies became objects of desire in ways their other subjects did not. Last question. There are many striking aspects to this project, uncovering a forgotten history, reclaiming a lost narrative, a better recognition of the diversity that came before us, revealing how we segregated Native history from urban history when in fact they are intertwined. What is your biggest takeaway? The author speaks. My hope is that in working to unpack the indigenous history of Washington, D.C., I can explore how and why our cultural expectations develop, as well as how and why those expectations are challenged, resisted, and reshaped constantly. If I do that well, the book will not only succeed in telling forgotten and secret stories about the capital, but make a larger contribution to how we think about the U.S. in its past. Okay, again, the author is Joseph Jennington Pilloway, is an assistant professor at George Mason University. His first book is Crooked Paths to Allotment, the fight over federal Indian policies after the Civil War. Also, he has lectures on history of Native Americans in Washington, D.C. Okay, let's go ahead and continue on. So we're going to just review a quick video that depicts it. So a lot of times, a lot of people like to see videos. I do like videos. The only thing about videos is the fact that it's just so much you can get from a video versus actually reading articles. So it's a mix of what we're doing. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Washington, D.C. is the capital and one of the most visited city in the United States. In this video, we are going to show you the evolution of Washington, D.C., from its early discovery up to the modern city of today. But before anything else, please consider subscribe for more interesting videos. In the early days, various tribes of the Algonquian-speaking Piscataway people inhabited the area around the Potomac River. In 1699, conflicts between European colonists and neighboring tribes forced the relocation of the Piscataway people. In 1790, Congress passed the Residence Act, which approved the creation of a national capital on the Potomac River. The exact location was to be selected by President George Washington, who signed the bill into law on July 16. In 1791, the three commissioners overseeing the capital's construction, and named the city in honor of President George Washington. Congress passed the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1801, which officially organized the district, and placed the entire territory under the exclusive control of the federal government. In 1814, British forces invaded the capital during the War of 1812. The Capitol, Treasury, and White House were burned and gutted during the attack. Most government buildings were repaired quickly. In 1861, in the outbreak of the American Civil War, led to the expansion of the federal government and notable growth in the district population. In 1870, the district population had grown 75% from the previous census to nearly 132,000 residents. Despite the city growth, Washington still had dirt roads and lacked basic sanitation. In 1871, Congress passed the Organic Act of 1871, which repealed the individual charters of the cities of Washington and Georgetown, and created a new territorial government for the whole District of Columbia. In 1873, presidential appointed governor of Washington Alexander Roby Shepherd authorized a large-scale projects that greatly modernized the city of Washington. In 1888, the first motorized streetcars began service, and generated growth in the city of Washington. In 1900, the district was the first city in the nation to undergo urban renewal projects as part of the City Beautiful movement. In 1930, the increased federal spending led to the construction of new government buildings, memorials, and museums in the district. During World War II, due to the increased government activity, federal employees in the capital reached its peak of 802,178 residents. Today, Washington is home to many government offices, national monuments, and museums. The city also houses many foreign embassies, as well as the headquarters of many international organizations, such as the World Bank Group, the International Monetary Fund, the International Finance Corporation, and the American Red Cross. So guys, what do you think the future of Washington, D.C.? Comment down below. If you enjoy watching this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.
All right, so now that we've looked at more of the indigenous history, now we're going to look into the more modern history within 5 minutes. So it's not going to be as long, and it's not going to be about Native Americans. It's going to be about the aftermath of our being here as far as U.S. Taking over. This is the history. I'm assuming it's going to be from George Washington to present. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. Located between Virginia and Maryland on the north bank of the Potomac River, the city is home to all three branches of the federal government, as well as the White House, the Supreme Court, and the Capitol building. Washington had an estimated population of 700,000 as of July 2018, making it the 20th most populous city in the United States. It was founded in 1791 and named after President George Washington. Columbia, in District of Columbia, refers to Christopher Columbus. Washington, the District of Columbia, is not a state, nor is it a part of any state. It is a unique federal district created specifically to be the seat of government. From the very beginning, it was a city that was steeped in history and created out of a need to establish a central location for the running of the government. The history of Washington, D.C. is tied to its role as the capital of the United States. Various tribes of the Algonquian-speaking Piscataway people inhabited the lands around the Potomac River when the Europeans first visited the area in the early 17th century. One group, known as the Nacotchtank, maintained settlements around the Anacostia River within the present-day District of Columbia. The site of the District of Columbia along the Potomac River was first selected by President George Washington. The city was officially founded in 1790 after both Maryland and Virginia ceded land to this new district to be distinct and distinguished from the rest of the states. To design the city, in 1791, George Washington appointed Pierre Charles L'Enfant to devise a plan for the new city in which the federal territory would lay between the northeast shore of the Potomac River and the northwest shore of the Potomac's eastern branch. He planned a grid system, at which the center would be the Capitol building. Progress was slow, but the U.S. government moved to Washington in 1800. In 1802, Robert Brent was appointed the first mayor of Washington. However, a decade later, because of the war with Britain, the city came under attack in an episode known as the Burning of Washington. British forces burned several buildings, including the White House. Most government buildings were repaired quickly. However, the Capitol was largely under construction at the time and was not completed in its current form until the late 1800s. In the early and mid-19th century, Washington, D.C. continued to grow. A rail line from Baltimore to Washington was opened in 1835. However, there was racial tension in the growing city. There were many slaves in Washington as well as free blacks. The tension erupted in the Snow Riot of 1835 when whites attacked blacks. Washington remained a small city of a few thousand residents, virtually deserted during the summertime until the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861. President Abraham Lincoln created the Army of the Potomac to defend the federal capital, and thousands of soldiers came to the area. A year later, slavery was abolished throughout the district, 8 months before Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. The city became a popular place for freed slaves. The significant expansion of the federal government to administer the war and its legacies led to notable growth in the city's population, doubled to 132,000 in 1870. Life in Washington, D.C. improved in the late 19th century. President Grant appointed Alexander Robe Shepard to authorize large-scale projects that greatly modernized Washington. It was the first city in the nation to undergo urban renewal projects as part of the City Beautiful movement in the early 1900s. In the early 20th, the McMillan Plan was drawn up to remove many of the slums that surrounded the Capitol, replacing them with new public monuments and government buildings. Washington, D.C., however, remained deeply divided along racial lines. Violence broke out in cities across the country again. Whites, including uniformed sailors and soldiers, attacked blacks during Red Summer. Woodrow Wilson gave a voice in world affairs throughout the country's entry into World War I in 1917, and through his work to establish the League of Nations, an organization promoting international cooperation. After the war, civic pride and culture flooded the city. Art galleries, museums, and concert halls were built. Like the rest of the country, Washington, D.C. suffered in the Depression of the 1930s. At the same time, the city's population grew rapidly with the creation of additional federal agencies under the New Deal programs of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, during which most of the Federal Triangle buildings were constructed. World War II brought further population increases and a significant housing shortage, as existing residents were urged to rent rooms to the influx of federal staffers who arrived from throughout the country. In 1957, Washington became the first major city in the nation with a majority African American population. With the buildup of government and defense industries during World War II, many new residents found jobs. In the post-war years, whites who were better established economically began to move to newer housing in adjoining states in the suburbanation movement that occurred around most major cities. In 1963, Washington took center stage in the civil rights movement with the March on Washington, where Dr. Martin Luther King delivered his historic "I Have a Dream" speech. However, following the assassination of King on April 4, 1968, in Memphis, Washington was devastated by the riots. The civil unrest drove many whites and middle-class blacks to move out of the city core. Despite riots and civil unrest, Washington, D.C. continued to develop during the rest of the 20th century. After more than 200 years as the nation's capital, Washington has developed as a complex and layered city with a distinctive character, both a town for locals, an international center of power, and an amazing place to visit. Thank you for watching. Please check out our other animations on history and don't.
All right, so we're going to be looking at the topology, climate, and geography of DC. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So the geography of Washington, D.C., which is Mid-Atlantic region. All right. The topology and geology. The topology of DC is highly similar to the physical geography of much of Maryland. Of course, if you think about it, it's land from Maryland. This city has three significant natural flowing bodies of water: the Potomac River and two tributaries, the Anacostia River and the Rock Creek. The confluence of the Potomac and Anacostia forms the historic peninsula known as Arsenal Point. The district also includes the Washington Channel, which flows into the junction of the Anacostia and Potomac rivers. There are also three artificial reservoirs: the Delicaria Reservoir, which crosses over the northwest border of the district from Maryland, the McMillan Reservoir near Howard University, in Georgetown Reservoir upstream of Georgetown. A fourth minor reservoir is at Fort Reno in Tenleytown. Washington, D.C. is suited in the topographic bowl. The bottom of the bowl, where the White House and United States Capitol are located, is in the floodplain of the junction of the Anacostia and Potomac rivers. Extending out from the floodplain is a series of rising river terraces. These high ridges nearly surround the city. The highest of these terraces is 200 feet above sea level and is fronted by an escarpment that is very prominent along the east side of the Anacostia River. Steep sided ravines and small streams cut through the upper terrace east of the Anacostia River at frequent intervals. Examples of these streams valleys near can be found at Fort DuPont in Staten. You see, these are a couple images. That Potomac River is huge. That's one thing you can always look at, Potomac River. All right. DC is located on the fall line, the border of two considerable different geographical terrains or provinces. The hard rock of the Piedmont Plateau to the north and west, and the soft sediments of the Atlantic coastal plain to the east. The Piedmont Plateau is located north and west of the city. Deeply cut valleys and prominent ridges characterize this area. The highest point in DC is 410 feet above sea level at Reno Reservoir in Tenleytown. The lowest point is sea level, which occurs along all of the Anacostia shore and all of the Potomac shore except the uppermost 100 meters, the Little Falls Chain Bridge area. The sea level is Tidal Basin rose 11 feet during Hurricane Isabel on September 18, 2003. The geographic center of DC is on the site of the Organization of American States headquarters. The U.S. Capitol marks the intersection of the city's four administrative quadrants. Other prominent geographical features of DC including Theodore Roosevelt Island, Columbia Island, the Three Sisters in Haynes Point. Some areas, especially around the National Mall and parts of Foggy Bottom, were marshes or parts of the river that have been filled in. And then when we talk about the natural history, it's basically the species that were there in the forest will be the rabbits, turkey, the peasants, the woodcocks, turtles, quails, also mockingbirds, bluebirds, hummingbirds, orioles, as well as black snake, garter snake, rattlesnakes, copperhead, bullfrogs, other types of frogs, ground squirrels, flying squirrels, skunks, opossums, raccoons, foxes, beavers, deers, wolves and bears. Snipes and various types of ducks inhabited swampy areas as well as sorusses. The three species, the native three tree species would be the willow, perk, and cedar, as well as oak. Other plant species found along the Potomac, the jasmine, perkly pear cactus, white hound, sweet fennel, wild cherries, and strawberries. The largest percentage of parkland contributes to a high urban tree canopy, covering 35%. So, yeah, also we had the we had bald eagles as well. They also make it a point to try to reserve a lot of it. We talk about earthquake activity. Earthquake activity is very low. No earthquakes have been centered within within DC, nor are there any fault lines. However, it has felt earthquakes centered in Virginia or Maryland and other surrounding states, large earthquakes in Canada and New England. The district felt the 1811, 1812 New Madrid earthquakes. According to old records, residents were badly frightened. In March 1828, President John Quincy Adams felt a violent earthquake in the White House and wrote in his journal. In the 1886 Charleston earthquake was felt as well. The strongest earthquake in Virginia happened in 1897 and was felt in DC. An earthquake in 1925 in Canada, estimated about magnitude 7, was felt over 2 million square miles. Another 6.2 earthquake in 1935 caused damage to New York and shook residents from Maine to Wisconsin. 2011 Virginia earthquake was felt in DC and caused damage to landmarks and monuments such as the Washington Monument and the Washington National Cathedral. So earthquakes is not really that common and there's no real fault lines. Normally it's felt, but it's not going through. When we talk about the climate of DC, it's located in the humid subtropical climate zone and exhibiting 4 distinct seasons. Its climate is typical of the mid-Atlantic states. DC is located in USDA plant hardiness zone A8A near downtown in zone 7B elsewhere in the city. So the heat as far as when we talk about the temperatures, we have a little chart here showing that in January you can get snow from 43 degrees to 29 degrees, so it does snow at that time. Snow can also be found in February from 47 to 31. And then in March, snow can happen, but it rarely happens in March. So if you're looking for a place to locate that it snows, but it does not snow like in Chicago, DC will be a great spot to be in. So from March is 56 to 38. And then we talk about April, 67 to 47. May, 75 to 57. June, 84 to 66. July, 88 to 71. It can get up to 100. It rarely gets up to 100. August, 87 to 70. September, 80 to 62. October, 68 to 51. November, 58 to 41. And then it's where it snows a few times will be December, 47 to 33. The highest likelihood of snow that's happening in the DC area is as far as NOAA is concerned, is December through February. So it's most likely to snow in DC from December to February. So let's go ahead and we've kind of looked at what the weather looks like in between those. As far as the winter times, the average in January is 37.5 degrees or 3.1 Celsius. Rarely lows will be into the teens. And, -7 has been or lower. You're really not going to catch it being that low, honestly. Temperatures below 10 degrees is rare. The last time they seen a 0 degree was in 1994, which, if you notice, is everywhere was that cold. If you're looking at this map of the weather, in terms of highs, 50 degrees, highs on 8.6 days, while 9 days per season stay at or below freezing. In springtime, typically dry, sunny, and begins in March. Like we looked at, we always kind of talking about that it's rarely going to snow in March, but it can snow. The last freeze on average occurs on March 27. Due to the rapid warming, pollen is also problematic during this time of the year. So if you are very sensitive as far as asthma, or you have some kind of breathing issue, that time during the springtime, that pollen really is going to get to you. Serious heat and humidity begins around late April to early May. Although a dreary heat is possible earlier, the first 90 degrees will normally fall on average around May 17th. Summer is hot and humid. The average in July is 79 degrees. You might as well round up to 80. Nighttime will get that up to, it'll go fall down to 70 degrees. Dew points are around 62 to 66 degrees from June to August. Moderate discomfort. There are more than 35 days of 90 degrees or higher. 100 degrees, it rarely happens. Sometimes it doesn't even happen, but it does do not occur every year, but it can happen when it gets up to 100 degrees. It does not happen on a regular basis. In recent years, due to partly increased UHI buildup, daily minima of 80 degrees. This has been common. And then when we talk about autumn, this is crisp mornings. The temperature is reasonable, long transition with the last 90 degrees that you're going to be feeling throughout. Normally falls on average September 10th. The first freeze at regional, national occurring on November 18th. So that's normally where it freezes. Where again, we talked about it. If between the time of December to February, that's when you're going to catch that snow. And then we talk about snowfall. Again, the average of it'll be was 15.4 inches per season, occurring mostly in January and February, and accumulation in December and March, but rarely November or April. Rarely. Storms are usually nor'easters, which typically features high winds and heavy rains, occasionally in the form of blizzards. All right, so you're gonna find more sunshine than anything if you really do the math on it. So that's one thing that you can really look forward to. If you're looking for a place to be that it's mostly going to be kind of warm and barely gets real cold, DC may be a place to really go to. If you're looking for it to never snow, DC is not the place to move to. So one thing that we're going to be looking at is the top most frequent animals that are detected. This is information from the Humane Rescue Alliance. There is, as far as the frequency, domestic cats are the most frequently seen animals. The eastern gray squirrel is number 2. Domestic dogs is number 3. Brown rats is number 4. And when I tell you, there are huge rats that look like cats in DC. I mean, it's crazy. You like, is that a raccoon? No, it is a rat that's kind of like comparable to DC rats. I say DC rats, that's crazy. But New York rats. And I feel like the rats are big because they have a frequency of more people having trash that they eat. You know, if the rats that are in the South are not as big because they have less people that are stacked on each other. The number 5 will be the white-tailed deer. When you're driving around Maryland, you do have to watch it. As also in DC, those deer do come in front of you. There have been plenty of deer accidents in your vehicle. The number 6 will be northern raccoons. Number 7, red foxes. You will see them in your yard. not often. The number 8 will be the Virginia opossums. Number 9 will be the eastern cottontail. And number 10 will be the eastern chipmunk. All right, if you like to see more on that, you can always go and check it out on your own. So Animal Life, again, if you like to, this PowerPoint is in the description. If you like to know more about the wildlife in there, you can. We're going to finish off with bird watching tips. One reason is because I'm a bird watcher. If you are a bird watcher yourself, you can always go to ATL Birds to Watch. That is a YouTube channel that we also have. But for right now, let's go and get into bird watching tips for DC, because next time in the DMV area, I plan on doing a little bit more bird watching because, again, I love watching birds.
Birding is a great way to spend time outdoors with friends or family with little or no investment.
Oh, that bird always does that.
You don't have to drive far from home to plan birding trips.
Well, we don't get bird songs, we're gonna get bird calls.
And we asked Tyke James, the president of the DC Audubon Society, why he loves birding.
To me, it brought a sense of responsibility to build trust, to build connection, to build coalition, and to build power. Because often when we're out birding, we're seeing the conditions of the land, and we're connecting the history of the habitat with the history of the community.
Oh, that one? Oh, I see it.
Birders not only use sight
Ooh, that fly catching?
and sound to identify birds, they also use behavior.
Literally, what is the bird doing? Is it just sitting there perched? That's a behavior. Is it jumping around in the tree? That's a behavior. Is it pumping its tail? That's a behavior. Is it messing with other birds? That's a behavior.
And yes, there's an app for that.
Somebody posted the picture.
DC Bird Chatter, and they will share very generously what birds they've seen, where they've seen them, and typically they'll add in a picture in there just so you can be like, oh, this is what it looks like as well.
The Sharpshin has like that wide open eye.
Most birders are very dedicated to birding and are always on, like Maria Elena Montero.
I always knew what birds were around me. I grew up in Tacoma Park, where there's a lot of trees and a lot of backyard birds. And I just became more curious about birds that I wasn't seeing as regularly.
Sometimes there's a moment or a certain bird that ignites your passion.
There's something that happens where you can't get it off you. Something turns on, something sparks your interest. We always call it a spark bird. That's the bird that gets you into birding. For me, it was a belted kingfisher.
The Audubon Society will provide you with binoculars. Now, I brought my own and my trusty Peterson's A Field Guide to Birds book. Do you know that there are 18 million birders in the United States? It's not just your grandma doing it. It's becoming pretty popular. We're here in Northeast DC. We cross this bridge, we're in Heritage Island, which is a man-made island, by the way. Cross another bridge, that's Kingman Island. And we saw incredible birds today. Great blue herons, egrets, a bunch of warblers. What's weird is that we're in the shadow of RFK. I asked Tyke for his top 3 favorite places to go birding in the district.
Kingman and Heritage Islands. It's a really great city park. You get to see a lot of the river as well as some dense forest, so you can get a lot of mix of some water birds and shore birds while also getting warblers and wood songbirds. Big fan of Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens. And then Anacostia Park by the roller rink. There's a bridge that you can get on, and it gives you the ability to see trees at the canopy level.
Some of my favorite spots in the DMV include Huntley Meadows, just south of Alexandria in Virginia, Brookside Gardens in Wheaton, Maryland, and now, I'm a fan, Kingman and Heritage Islands in DC. We had quite a successful day.
White-throated sparrow, song sparrow, common grackle, northern parula, black pole warbler, northern cardinal.
You know, we ended up seeing over 44 different types of birds, and before I got there, they saw a bald eagle over RFK.
Nice.
So this is sort of interesting. COVID actually created a boom in birding. Now, most parks were open, and it was a safe way to be outside and socialize with friends and family. And, you know, I've been kind of a birder for a while. My dad sort of got me interested in it. Not crazy, but, you know, able to identify 20, 30 birds. I didn't know this, and Tyke told me that some birds have different colors in fall and spring. And that makes them even harder to identify.
Attention to detail. too there,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Hanging at the bars in D.C., you'll see a lot of the colors changing in summer and winter as well. But you're looking at the birds out. It's a good way to judge the health of a local ecosystem too, especially in an area where we end up generally seeing more of the metal birds with rotors than we do the actual birds with feathers.
Exactly. It's a good way to check on how your ecosystem is doing, and those islands, literally, I mean, we got Metro and we've got the RFK, a tremendous amount of birds.
You don't have to go far.
No.
Yeah.
Seeing those images, it's hard to believe that's Northeast DC.
Northeast DC.
Gotta check it out.
Yep.
All right, so this concludes what we got going on as far as the geography, the history, and the topology of DC. One thing about when we think about any land is the animals that live there, and I'm very conscious of the environmental struggles that we do have, especially with the EPA. So we got to look at the life forms that are there, because essentially that is our food. If you really think about it, if we were hunting gatherers, we are hunter gatherers, but one thing that we have to understand is the what we do to the land, it affects us deeply. So with that being said, if you last this long into this video, I really appreciate you. Make it a point to like, comment, share, and from there, we're going to try to eventually go to PA, and from PA, we're going to go to New Jersey and then Delaware. This is going to be per week. So let's go ahead and we're going to finish up strong, and I hope that you really enjoyed watching, because I enjoyed making it and learning a lot. We also are going to be doing the political climate. Also, we're going to be doing the, what was the next one? We're going to be doing more of a tutoring type thing, where it's going to be more in-depth, just into DC itself. That's not for everyone. A lot of people don't care about getting into the numbers and the just digging in. So that's the reason why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. So that way we're not talking to people who don't care about the richness, and they just want to visit themselves. Because, like, really and truly, who doesn't like visiting? And having a guide to visit DC, knowing that the WMATA is, as far as the metro, jumping on buses, knowing how to get and maneuver around, that's something that really will help you. Until then, let's go ahead and we're going to call it quits, and I'll see you on the next one.
If you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate you. Thank you for traveling with me through Washington, D.C. If you found value in this breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It lets me know you want more reports like this. Next up, make sure you check out our top 10 colleges in Washington, D.C. That video dives deeper into education, opportunity, and what makes the district a serious academic hub. And starting next week, we shift our focus to the state of Pennsylvania, new cities, new history, and a whole new travel and quality of life report. Confident Close. Until next time, Ikuzo.
He's at 20. Yeah, 20. Yeah, we got 20 total.
You missed it.
We got 10. I ain't been in my house for like a first.
I'm still panicked.
Over there.
Go, Prince. Shake it. Shake some. Shake some, Prince. Hey. Come on.
She did 10 too.
Come on.
Oh, you scored 10 too?
Yeah.
Yes, she did. All right, my bad. Right, no, but I came back and scored 10 more.
No, you didn't.
Nah. She right. Hey, you gotta get caught with her. Get caught with her.
Yeah. Look at her. Yeah. Shake it. Hey. Go, Prince. Go, Prince. Shake it. Shake it.
Hey.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Ow. Shake it with me, Prince. Flap some.
Hey, fluff something. Hey.
Oh, come on. Come on. Yeah. You can't hear the music.
Alexa, turn up.
Why everything in front of me? I'm sitting right here. Shake it.
Your sister.